Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Welcome to the Monday Night Football Showdown video for DraftKings for week 1 of NFL DFS. We've got a fantastic game. Well, we have a game. It may not be fantastic. It's got a low total. It's the Broncos against the Seahawks in Seattle. The Russ Wilson revenge game is in play here as he travels to Seattle with his new team to maybe extract some revenge on Pete Carroll and the 12s and his old teammates. I don't know. We're going to break it down, talk about the potential captains and how we go about making lineups for this slate. So thank you guys for being here, and let's go.
He's a legend.
All right, let's start over on Underdog Fantasy. Like we do a lot on these showdown sheets. Let's do a pick 'em. You can go higher or lower than a bunch of different stats. You have to have players from at least 2 different teams. Let's go higher than 255 passing yards, higher on both of them. So we're going to correlate Russ with Cortland and Judy. And look, obviously betting the unders is sharper. A lot of things can happen. Players can leave a game with injury and then it happens to go under the total. But I don't want to do what's, sharper for these things. I want to have some fun. I want to kind of root for completed passes, scoring. I know that this game has a low total, so let's go under DK Metcalf, 56 receiving yards there. I'm going to put this in for $25. If you do not already have an account on Underdog Fantasy, in fact, let's do the insurance. We never do that, right? Hit 3 or more to win, 1.5 if I get 3. If I get all 4, I get 6x on that. If you don't have an account already at Underdog Fantasy, you can use code smizzle at your first deposit and get up to $100 deposit bonus on your first deposit to the sites. They have best ball. They have great mode called Battle Royale, as well as all the best ball stuff in the offseason. So go check out everything they have over at Underdog Fantasy. Going to the game, the NFL Showdown, $2.5 million. It's a lot of money. It's a whole lot of money. So let's start with the potential captains for the slate, right? I'm going to skip the quarterbacks. We'll get to them in just a little bit. Javonte Williams, 15.3 at the captain spot. Now, I'm going to have some shares of Javonte, but I don't think he's going to carry the ball like 70% of the time, right? This is not going to be a massive RB1, RB2 situation. This is going to probably split out the lot like it did last year, where 55% of the work goes to one guy and 45% of the work goes to another guy. But Javonte is such an absolute monster. So good in the passing game. One of the league's best in terms of yards after first contact, in terms of broken tackles and everything else. So if he was to get 70% of the snaps and touches at running back for Denver, he would absolutely smash. They're 2.5 point favorites in this game. It is on the road, but a favored team, whether they play at home or on the road, there is an advantage to the running back in that situation. He's going to be one of the popular captains, but I think that the pass catchers are going to be probably a little bit more optimal. So somebody like Cortland Sutton at 14.1. All the reports from camp were that in every practice, Cortland Sutton was Russ Wilson's favored target when it came to practices, games, any situation. He was looking to Cortland Sutton first. Whether you think that he's the one in Bible study with him, whether you want to go with the fact that he wears the same number as DK Metcalf did in Seattle, or that he's more of the downfield threat, there were a lot of metrics underlying for Cortland Sutton last year that were not realized, not materialized with Teddy Two Gloves throwing the football, that like if we could just get him a more efficient passer with the amount of targets he was getting, his average depth of throw, the air yards that he was getting in that offense. Now, granted, it's a completely different offense this year, but he has the talent to be a wide receiver 1, but his metrics were that of like a top 5 wide receiver through the first 3-4 weeks of last season. Now, if he can capitalize on that with Russ Wilson, he is probably one of the best captains on this particular slate. And then a whole lot cheaper, coming way down to like 12.6 for DK Metcalf. You saw me just bet the under on the yardage. I'm just not buying Geno in terms of being able to deliver the ball consistently, but DK is such a threat downfield. There is a massive blocker in his way in terms of Patrick Surtain on the other side being as good in coverage as he is. But like DK Metcalf is one, this is something I do need to say. People tend to like look at the projections. We're a very projection driven game right now is daily fantasy, but then people look past the projection and say, well, okay, well, he's got a really bad matchup in terms of who's throwing him the ball and the guy that's covering him. And then they double weight it. Those things are already baked into any projection system that you're using, whether you use Fantasy Labs, Establish the Run, rotogrinders, or anywhere else. All of that is already baked into his projection on the night. So if you are then saying, okay, well, here's his projection, and then I'm going to take 10 or 20% off of that because he's playing against Patrick Surtain on the other side, or anybody in any bad matchup, you're doing it twice. You're double counting. You're like double taxing him, and nobody wants to get double taxed. So if you believe that DK Metcalf has got the possibility of making a big splash play, and he does have the possibility of making a big splash play, then he would be viable for you at captain. I think that Jerry Jeudy has a few more opportunities in that respect, or in that right. You look at his numbers from last year, and his numbers from last year do not represent or reflect what him or Courtland Sutton could and should do this season with Russ. And the lineups that you can build with Jerry Jeudy at captain look a lot different. The last one that I think is probably the most viable for the Seahawks is Rashad Penny. They want to establish the hell out of it anytime that they can. Coach Carroll's going to chew the bejesus out of the gum that's in his mouth and try to get them to run the ball on first and second down as much as possible, which is probably the right way to go when Geno Smith is the guy taking 3 5s and 7s from under center. So Rashad Penny has won that battle. Obviously, the rookie that they drafted behind him is out and injured with a multitude of injuries at this point. But like, Rashad Penny was that guy a few years ago where they drafted him, and myself and Mike Clay and others thought that they're going to put Penny in this role, and he's actually a good running back. And then he just sat for a couple of years behind Carson. Well, Carson's retired now, and we saw what Penny did down the stretch for this team. But they would have to play from ahead. So you're telling the story that Seattle's going to play from ahead in that scenario. If you are building a lineup with Courtland Sutton as your captain, make sure that Russ Wilson is going to be in those lineups. And the same thing goes for Jerry Jeudy. If you got him at your captain, Russ Wilson must be tied to him, whether you're hand building or whether you're using a lineup builder. And then conversely, if you think that DK Metcalf is going to have a night that warrants him being in the captain spot, like 125 yards and 1, if not 2 touchdowns or 6 or 8 catches, then that would mean that Geno Smith has had a good enough night to warrant being in that lineup with DK Metcalf. Now, on the other side of things, the other couple viable captains are the quarterbacks, because quarterbacks do tend to average the most fantasy points from a projection standpoint, especially from a median standpoint. But from a captain standpoint, you want to isolate to the guys that are going to have the most points on the slate. Now, it is possible that quarterback can do that, but more often than not, it's one of the unicorn types, a guy like Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, anybody of that ilk, Lamar Jackson, where they can have that 30 to 40 point night. Russ Wilson is capable of putting up a night like that, but if he does, it's going to come mostly through the air, which means that one of his pass catchers could challenge to be a more viable captain in that situation. So the other thing is, more people play the quarterback at captain than the amount of time that it wins. Quarterback and captain all time has won like 15% of the showdowns, but you're going to notice if you look at how many people play the quarterback at captain, the total for both teams ends up being like 40+% most of the time. So if you've got a quarterback and captain, you're already behind the 8 ball. I tend to limit it to about that 15% total, if not below, unless it's one of those unicorn guys. I don't think that we have them in this game. In my Russ Wilson at captain lineups, though, I'm going to force at least 2 of his pass catchers into every one of those lineups, whether I'm building by hand, whether I'm building on a lineup builder. You're going to pick basically everybody who is a viable target for him, not the guys who are out or on IR. Anybody that you think can catch passes is going to go with that. And then we're going to bring that back with every offensive skill player on the other side. So we'll start with Geno. We'll go to Metcalf, Penny, Lockett, Fant, basically anybody that's an offense player. I'm not going to use the opposing kicker. I'm not going to use the opposing defense, specifically in lineups where I have a quarterback captain. Same thing would go for Geno Smith, but I don't know how many Geno Smith captain lineups I'm going to build. But if you wanted to, you would basically build those same stacking groups. If you're still watching at this point, make sure that you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell. I come out with a ton of videos all week long on this channel. Basically every single day of the week, there will be a video here on the main channel. So make sure that you ring the notifications bell so you get that bell up there will light up for you every single time that I post something new. I appreciate you guys being here, and thank you very much. Defense and kickers, something that people always want to talk about. Can I play defense at captain? I personally don't. You can if you want to. You are also putting yourself on the wrong side of the math if you do that. Yes, defensive captain won. In fact, defensive captain won on the first Thursday night slate of the year. On the last sack of the game, moved past one of my lineups and pushed me out of first into second place. And the problem isn't that defense and captain won. The problem is defense at captain wins roughly 5% of the time. But over 10% of the field is playing defense at captain. You want to do the things that win more often, like running back, wide receiver, and captain, where the field isn't playing that at captain. So I tend to mute my quarterbacks and erase captain kicker and captain defense. I will let those people be the rake more often than not, as opposed to doing that. The other thing that I'm going to do, I might allow 2 kickers or 2 defensive players specifically in this, but most often I build a group that says these 4 players, only one maximum, of these 4 group of players in any one lineup. It can work if you have 2. I just go for as much ceiling and as much upside as I possibly can in my showdown lineups, and that's how I build. We'll go over to the Fantasy Labs lineup builder and take a look at it in just a second. But I wanted to talk about No Kid Hungry for a second. If you look right below me, we have a fundraising goal of $100,000. $50,000 of that comes from the community. The other $50,000 will come from me. For every $10,000 that you guys raise, I will match $10,000 up to $50,000 from now until December 31st. We got 4 months to get there. We're already on the road, as you can see, with over $3,000 donated. Go to smizzle.tv/charity. All of these are in smizzle.tv/links. Which is right down below in the pinned comment. It is also in the description. You can find it on every single video. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you for being such a great part of this community. Last year we raised $35,000, the community did, and this year I'm asking for $50,000 donated to No Kid Hungry. So every dollar helps. If you have $1 or $5, that helps. If you want to give more, that's great too. But let's go over to Fantasy Labs and check out the things that they do and the things that I do with the optimizer. You can go to smizzle.tv/labs with an uppercase L. The link is right down below next to the links link in the pinned comment. It also is in the description. Anywhere that you want, just scroll down your page and you will find it if you wanted to use the lineup. If you're playing the mini max, this is a great way to get involved in making 150 lineups. As you can see, I tell it to not allow kicker or defense at captain. I will allow it to leave up to 10% of the salary cap on the table just to make a bunch of different lineups, 5 players versus defense. This is shuffle right here. I have it be 1 unique player per lineup, so it shifts out 1 player max from, or minimum from those lineups from one to the next. And then we get to our position groups. Pair the captain quarterback with at least 2 of the pass catchers or kicker from the same team. Kicker is a positive correlation with the quarterback in terms of fantasy scoring. Most people think that they work against each other. Mathematically, they don't. Quarterback at captain, at least 1 of the skill position players, QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end from the opponent. Pair the captain wide receiver with at least 1 quarterback from the same team. Same goes if you have a captain tight end from the same team. Play their quarterback, and limit to at most 1 defense and kicker from the same game. The most important thing, though, is to get differentiation, because you don't want to hold hands with 150 plus people like the people who play defense at kicker did on Thursday Night Football. You'd like to get within like 5 to 20 people so that you can maximize as much money as you can win. The easiest way to do it is go over to the custom tab. At least 1 player from those 3 positions where the projected percentage is less than 15%, or you can go over here to player group and add at least 1 player from a specific group of those low owned projected players that you want. Then you apply those settings. We come over here to the lineup builder. Let's build 150 lineups, and we'll hit generate. That's going to do it. But you're never going to be able to just go there and hit it one time. You're going to have to manufacture these percentages. You're going to have to make sure that you get the guys that you want and the combinations that you want. It's never as easy as go to the projections and just hit play, and then you're going to just print the money. That's not how this works, but it is a tool that will save you a ton of time. As you can see, it took like 15 seconds to make 150 lineups. And if you're a small level player and you want to play the dime entry or the quarter entry mini max, try and test yourself out as a mass multi-entry player, Fantasy Labs is a great way to do it. So best of luck to you on Monday night. Best of luck in your pick'ems and in DFS. And look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.